the record button. I miss class sometimes. I need those lectures to be recorded. And if you know anybody that wants to take this class, it'll be available online, including these recordings next semester. So it'll be an online version of ECO 2023. All right, some stuff on the board to just kind of bring things together to connect Chapter 11 and 13, where we're discussing the economics of the firm. Okay, Chapter 11 was about competitive firms. So we want to make sure that what we learned out of there, what's unique to competitive firms versus what's true for all firms. So we start off first with what isn't unique to competitive firms, but it's just any firm will do it. Okay, so first of all is just the math of what profit means. Okay, profit, total revenue minus total cost. If you factor out the Q from total revenue and total cost, then you get this equation, which tells you that to have a profit, price must be more than average cost. And normal profit, 0. Yeah, I know that's hard to swallow. It's normal about 0. You got to do some study, you got to do some work. It's normal because costs include a normal rate of return. Includes all opportunity costs, not just expenses. Okay, so it's okay, it's normal for price to equal average cost. You make an economic profit, an above normal profit when price is more than average cost. Okay, that attracts competitors. Okay, so unless there are entry barriers, profits will be driven down just to normal, down to 0. Okay, as long as price is more than average cost, competitors will be attracted into the industry. That will increase the market supply. That will drive down the price until price and average cost are the same. Right? All firms maximize profit by finding the output level where the marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost, or if they can't be exactly equal, slightly greater than. So those of you in the back wishing you had binoculars, see what's that little funny looking thing above the equal sign? That's a little bitty greater than sign. Right? So the equal sign here with a little bit of greater than means you want them to be equal if you can, but if you can't sell half an umbrella or half a car to make them equal, okay, then you stop with marginal revenue, just barely above marginal cost. Because that means if you make one more, marginal revenue will be less than marginal cost. Not good. Right? Not a duh. Right? It's a duh not to do that, right? To expand production at a greater cost than the amount of revenue that it'll bring. Not going to happen. All right, and then just our hieroglyphics here, that's sort of a funny looking pi symbol. P was already taken for price, so the economists out there, predating me, decided that the pi symbol would be the acronym, I guess, or the symbol standing for profit. So just keep that in mind, because I'll be using the pi symbol a lot. Why does this equal 3.1416? No. It's the Greek letter pi, okay, standing for profit. Okay, in chapter 11, okay, remember we skipped 12. Okay, in chapter 11, we talked about competitive industries, competitive firms. Okay, and perfectly and purely are interchangeable terms. Your chapter mostly uses, I think exclusively uses perfectly, but the other term, the synonym, is also quite common. All right, so in the long run, the price will be equal to the minimum average cost. Okay, market entry will occur until price is equal to the average cost. And why the minimum average cost? Well, if a firm can lower its average cost any further to keep price above it, they will do that. So firms will keep lowering their costs until it's gone as low as they can get, and market entry will keep coming until the price goes down to that point. Competition is a pretty brutal thing. You're trying to squeeze out a few bucks of economic profit, and every time you manage to do it by either cutting your expenses or innovating, some copycats come along and copy what you're doing and force the price down to just barely enough to cover the expenses and opportunity costs. All right, so we have price taking going on. In the market, the supply and demand intersection, that's our market price, carries over to each member. Price that they take is given, nothing they can do about it. They're not big enough, don't have enough market share to influence the price. So the marginal revenue will be constant, equal to the long run equilibrium. Again, for those of you in the back, I think, what on earth does this say here? It's a P with an ELR subscript. Okay, equilibrium for E for equilibrium, LR for long run. Okay, the price will go down to the minimum average cost in the long run. Okay, marginal revenue equals marginal cost here and at the minimum average cost. Okay, so and I put some numbers on here so we can compare straight across to what's going to happen in a monopoly situation to show how just changing the number of firms and putting up some entry barriers changes things. Okay, so the market, long run equilibrium price in the market is $9 when it's competitive, and each member of that market takes that as a given. Says, okay, well, that's the going rate. I can't charge more, otherwise people will shop elsewhere. If I charge less, I'm nuts, because I can sell all I have for the $9. Okay, so let me go ahead and take attendance now that probably everybody's waded through the rain and the wind, so I don't forget to do that. You would have reminded me though, right? As I was saying before you got here, I wish somebody had reminded me to push the record button last time. It didn't happen. And here we go. Seems to be stabilizing at 33. That looks like about how many people made it today. All right. Okay, we're going to do, as I've been doing the last few times, and just kind of use the PowerPoint to clean up on things and make sure everything got covered, and to do a second round of fishing for questions. I'm just going to go over the big things. No, it's the, I kind of ran into this little border here in the blackboard. This is the same thing as this. Okay, P with an E subscript and then with an LR subscript.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure, thanks for asking. Yeah, it's one of the things with the pit here, and some of you are kind of shy and don't want to sit up close. So long distance is only the next best thing to being there. It's like, I've heard that before. Yeah, it's an old telephone company slogan. All right, anything else before we move on? Okay, so that kind of recapitulated what we've gone over. I haven't said anything about monopolies yet, which we're going to talk about today. Okay, just the competitive stuff. Okay, now I attempted to redraw this graph. Now I know I drew it a little bigger, but with the same numbers to illustrate a point, namely, okay, hold everything constant, but change the number of firms from many to one, right? Monopoly, single seller is what the word monopoly means. Okay, change from many sellers to single seller with what happens? What's different? Well, several things are different. First of all, now we have a situation where the now single seller is not a price taker, but a price maker. The points on the demand line represent a menu. A menu of price quantity combinations that the single seller is empowered by not having any competitors to pick from. Now, the law of demand is still a significant constraint. Just because they're the single seller doesn't mean they can sell all they want at any price they want. Right? The law of demand still applies. The more they charge, the less they're going to sell. Okay, but at least they don't have to worry about really elastic demand. Meaning what? Well, firms over here have really elastic demand because they have identical substitutes sold by competing firms. Okay? Now they're the only seller, so there may be substitutes, but they're not close substitutes. Okay, so demand will be much less elastic, infinitely elastic here behind me, right? Because they have many competitors selling the same thing. Here, no competitors, no one's selling the same thing. For it to be a monopoly in any meaningful sense, there can't be really close substitutes, otherwise it's not a monopoly. Right? You may have the best breakfast tacos in town, it's your business. Nobody else's is just like that. Hey, I got a monopoly. Well, yeah, but a lot of other folks sell breakfast tacos and close substitutes. And yeah, yours may be the best for some people, given their tastes. But there are also people at the margin who say, oh, those are pretty good breakfast tacos, but don't charge me too much, otherwise I'll buy somebody else's. Okay, so what changes now is the marginal revenue is less than the price. You think, wow, I thought a monopoly had an advantage. This isn't good. Well, yeah, they have the advantage of being able to pick whichever price-quantity combination they think is best. Okay, but it's true, whenever they lower their price, they're giving up money on units they could have sold at that high price in order to sell more. So now they're in a trade-off situation. To sell more, they have to charge less on all units. You think, well, but Doc, why can't they charge the same price on some and then charge less to sell more? Well, that's called price discrimination. And many businesses try to do that, and that's the last thing that we're going to talk about this semester. On December 1st, our last day of class, that's chapter 14. We're going to talk a little bit about price discrimination. But in this chapter, start simple, of course. We're going to say, no, we're not going to allow price discrimination here. Whatever price the monopoly picks off of this menu called the demand line, whatever price they pick, all units that they sell have to sell at that price. Okay? So as they lower price to sell more, they're making less money on each one, right? So the trade-off there. Okay, and that's why marginal revenue is less than price. We'll illustrate with some numerical examples here in a minute. And it turns out that the marginal revenue for a linear demand line, which is the only kind we're going to look at, again, just to keep things simple to start off, marginal revenue goes down twice as fast as price. It's called the something shortcut. My brain just went blank. I think it's just the marginal revenue shortcut. Okay, we know from many examples and from calculus and all kinds of other ways to prove it that the marginal revenue will go down twice as fast as price. So once we know that rule, we can go, okay, we'll just put it right in here. There. Okay, that's a 500 in case that's not SOO, it's 500, 500. Why 500? Well, because we know if the marginal revenue goes down twice as fast as price, it's going to hit the horizontal axis at half the number that the demand line does. Okay, so if the demand line hits the x-axis at 1,000, the MR line is going to hit it at 500. Okay, let me label here. And it'll go negative too, right? So it means it's not unrealistic to keep drawing the line. It's just not meaningful. Why isn't it meaningful? Will a firm charge a price where marginal revenue is negative? Not willingly, right? So we know it's negative. How do we know it's negative? Well, if we graph total revenue, it looks like this. And remember from the elasticity chapter that the midpoint is where the elasticity is 1, minus 1 in absolute value, and total revenue is maximized. Okay, I'm kind of dragging my feet, going slow, make sure that no one says, but Doc, you just went so fast. The trade-off here, though, you might go like this if I go too slow. All right, well, let's see now. Okay, we learned last chapter that the supply line is all the firm's marginal cost lines aggregated together. Oh, there is only one firm. Well, okay, then the supply line is just that firm's marginal cost line. Okay, and we know that the economic golden rule, as I call it, says the best amount of anything is where marginal benefit equals marginal cost. In this case, the anything is profit, so marginal revenue equals marginal cost is what that means. Okay, so where does marginal revenue equal marginal cost? Oh, that's right there, at this quantity. So we see something right away. Oh, if we go from many firms to one firm, output's going to go down. Right? The market with the competitive was at 450. Okay? Marginal revenue or equals marginal cost at a smaller quantity than that. Oops, I can't move the monitor much. Eric. Let's see, what does that number look like? Let's say it's 350. Okay? Now you're thinking, oh, price is going to go down. No, that defies common sense, and it isn't correct either. Right? Common sense is a good defense against this. What do I mean by common sense? Do you believe, even without taking an economics course, that if the market went from competitive to monopoly, that prices would go down? No. Right? If you have no choice where to buy a product versus you have a choice, which one's going to yield lower prices? Common sense, the competitive situation. So, if you draw a dotted line over here from your, okay, this is the quantity, right? MR is equal to MC, and you go, oh, well, that's lower than the $9, the long-run price of competitive. No. Okay, that's not the price. The price is up here, right? The demand line is your menu of price and quantity combinations. If you choose this quantity of 350, right, which is the one that maximizes profit, then how do you know what price you should charge to maximize your profit? Well, you go up to the demand line, and there it is. Kind of crooked dotted lines there. Again, just for the sake of some numbers to crunch, let's say that's $11. I'm not going to call it P star. It is P star for the monopoly, right? That's the one that maximizes their profit. Selling 350 units at $11 each. Talk your way through the numbers. Not just a bunch of memorizing hieroglyphics. That doesn't work. Talk your way through the numbers. The monopoly maximizes profit because the 350th unit just barely covers the additional cost. Right? The additional cost, when you go from 349 to 350, is equal to the additional revenue when you go from 349 to 350. Okay? Which is why they don't make 351, which is why they stop. Okay, and then the common sense is, yeah, that'll increase price. So, here, no, that doesn't work. Let's call that 8. Ah, that's right, the demand line, that's the menu that connects price and quantity. Find the quantity first. Always find the quantity first when you're trying to figure out what a firm's going to do and how well they're going to be doing. Find the quantity first and then do everything else. Oh, price, profit, deadweight loss, all those other things that you can find. Now, monopolist is a member of society too, so, okay, so what's the problem here? Yeah, the consumers are going to be paying more, but the monopolist makes more money. Yeah. Maybe a wash? No. See, our diagram resolves this. Just like if you went to one of those articles that I sent about the Wall Street Journal article about international trade, and some people, oh, but these losses and these gains and all that. Hey, our model settled that. For free trade, the gainers' gains are more than the losers' losses. Right, so this notion of, well, these jobs here were lost, and this, yeah, there are going to be losses, but the gainers' gains are more than the losers' losses from opening up markets to international trade. Well, this model settles whether it's, hey, the monopoly gains, but consumers lose. Is it a wash? No, it's not a wash, right? Because there's a deadweight loss. Consumer surplus plus the producer surplus is less than it would otherwise be. The social surplus is less than it would be in the competitive case. In fact, let's figure that out here, what that is, just for practice, because including today, we only have 3 days of class left. Yay! Well, we have the test is one of those days, so we have 3 actual days of class. No, I'm not sure. I'll miss you. But some of you, no. Who knows what the different reactions are? Maybe you'll miss me. But anyway, here we go. What's the consumer surplus plus the producer surplus here? Okay, consumer surplus, 15 minus 9 times 450 divided by 2. Right, consumer surplus, demand minus price. Okay, then the consumer surplus. Did I say producer surplus? Consumer surplus. Okay, and then here's the producer surplus down here, price minus supply. let's see, what are those? The way I drew the graph, they're equal. Okay, so let's see, 6 times 450 divided by 2 is, that's 3 times 1350. Okay, so combined, the social surplus is 2,700. How much does that shrink by if we go from a competitive situation to a monopoly? Well, let's see, according to my made-up numbers here, that would shrink by 150. Now, why am I just throwing the number out there? Because I want you to take a stare at it and do the calculation real quick, or recognize that whatever you did before to learn this concept, because it's come up a few times before, didn't work. You've forgotten it already. Okay, a dead weight loss, right, is we lost some of this, right? Because we cut it off here. And at 350, right, we lost this piece right here. The last 100, marginal benefit was more than marginal cost. Okay, we left it sitting on the table, those gains from trade for these last 100 units. Left it sitting on the table because with the monopoly we stopped at 350. Okay, so 3 times 100 divided by 2, 150. Okay, so what is the dead weight loss? A loss in gains from trade, a loss in social surplus. How do we find it? The vast majority of the time it's the shape of a triangle, so we take one side times the other side and divide by 2. Okay, so here we have a situation where the average unvarnished person would say somebody gains and somebody loses. What's the big deal? It's probably a wash. No, it's not a wash. There's a net loss if we have an industry go from competitive to not competitive. Also notice that the consumer surplus is quite a bit lower, right? Here's the consumer surplus now. Four times 350 divided by 2, 700 now. It was 1350 over here. Now the numbers may not add up, so I better stop because I've been kind of drawing the graph kind of sloppy. Okay, but definitely the consumer surplus is smaller now. Yeah, the price is higher. Duh. Question, comment, thought. Doc, clarify that for me, please. Doc, I didn't ask this question last time, other test, and I missed the question as a result. I should have spoken up. I made the effort to come to class, and then I didn't make use of being there by asking a question when I didn't get it. Right, you braved the wind and the rain, and here you are, and what on earth is he talking about? But there you are, silent. Not demanding explanation. See, that's in Cajun. I'm having fun, at least. The fun never ends unless you let it. Don't let it. See, isn't it fun when that hammer goes an extra 10 feet from the time before? Or did you do the hammer? You do the hammer throw, right? Yeah. Or do you do the shot put too? All of those, okay. Yeah, it's exciting. All right, let's see. Okay, let's see how we're doing when we go with the numerical example. The one from last time, the one that's posted in. I think it's posted in chapter 11 module on BB Learn. Okay, so last time I think the only thing that I did with this, other than to demonstrate some where the cost numbers come from, one thing that we did is we said, okay, if this is the situation for a firm, the price will eventually settle in at what? We did this before. Look at the numbers over here, or not the number, rather than the numbers and the graph, not the numbers per se. Okay? Market entry occurs until the price goes down to the minimum average cost. See, and putting something like this on the test settles whether you grasp that statement or whether you just memorized it but had no idea what it meant. Okay, if you grasp what it means, you look up here and say, oh, okay, well, wow, the minimum average cost there is 38.7. Oh, the price is going to go down at least to 38.7 for market entry in the long run. See, a statement you can memorize, or you can think about it a little bit and let it sink in, and then you become functional, right, in terms of looking at numbers and finding things. Okay, or reading an article and getting it and understanding what's going on and who's talking nonsense versus who's making sense. Something you better figure out before you get in the business of charging for your services, right? To be able to discern the difference between sense and nonsense. All right, the other thing that we did, I think that was the last thing that we did, was we did some what if. I said, what if the price is 85? And we determined that based on this, in a competitive situation, and we said, okay, if the price is 85, then the firm's marginal revenue is set constant at 85. They'll look at marginal cost and they'll go up to quantity 13, which I'm reviewing now, right? So I'm going a little faster than if it was the first time, but reviewing means fishing for questions. Okay, so at 13, right, why 13? Well, because the 14th one has a marginal cost of 86. Would you manufacture a unit of output at an additional cost of $86 if you were going to sell it for $85? No. But you would make the 13th one, right? Because that one has an MR 85 of more than the marginal cost, and so you're doing, yeah. Right, see, that's why the little greater than sign here. Yeah, with the 13th one, marginal revenue is more than marginal cost, just barely. It's the last one worth making. With the 14th one, marginal revenue is less than marginal cost. All right, so we did that, and then we looked at it and said, oh, okay, if the price is 85, price times quantity, which is total revenue, is a lot more than total cost. This market is not in long-run equilibrium at $85. Market entry will occur. Okay, and that's when we came up to the, oh, how far down will the price go? Down to 38.7. Fishing for questions here. All right, let's take another perspective at this and say, okay, suppose we put the market prices on there now. And let's just kind of walk our way through that and say, suppose the price is 101, which means the market quantity is 12. Okay, so all the competitive firms out there are saying the price is 101. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. 101. Yeah, that's cool. That's what the going rate is. I can't sell it for more than that because that's what somebody else is selling the same product for, and why sell it for less? It's the going rate. I can sell it for 101. Let's see. 101 with the quantity 12, the marginal cost, that's the right-handmost column, is 74. So every one of the firms out there is seeing that for each one they make, they collect $101. At the margin, the additional cost is 74. What are they each going to reach? What conclusion is each one of them going to reach? You can say it in Cajun if you want, right? Because it's that word that works in Cajun. Expansion. Right? Expansion. Right? The last one brought in $101 and cost $74. Expand, right? That's looking pretty good. Okay, so each one of them is going to be seeing the same price signal, so they're going to expand. Okay, so they expanded, now the quantity is 13. Price is 98. Marginal cost is 80. Same signal, right? Just a little weaker. Right? But the price is still way above marginal cost. Every single one of the firms is going to say at that situation, I'm going to make more. My marginal revenue is more than my marginal cost. If my marginal revenue is the same as price, I'm going to make more. Where is that going to end? At what point are they going to individually, by themselves, reach the conclusion, this is it, I'm not going to make any more. I'm not going to expand. Huh? Yeah, that's right. At 15, the market price, which is their individual marginal revenue for each one of them, is equal to marginal cost. It doesn't make any sense. It makes sense to make the 15th one, right? Because the marginal cost includes the normal rate of return on all their resources. Okay, but it doesn't make sense to do the 16th one. If they all expanded, the price would go down to 89. And the additional 16th one would add $98 to cost. Not good. Okay, so you see now why the price in the short run, why short run? Because even at the quantity 15 price of 92, there's still a lot of economic profit there to be made. How can you quickly tell by eyeball, without doing any math, that there's economic profit being made at the short run equilibrium quantity of 15? Because price at 92 is above average cost. And you want to figure out exactly what the profit is. Yeah, then we got to do a little bit of math. Price minus average cost times 15. But just observing that price, 92, when the quantity is 15, and then the average cost when the quantity is 15 is 56.3, right? That's quite an economic profit being made there. Right? The average unit is earning them $33.70. Take a moment to absorb, digest, process, think about that. Okay, so we did that to get, just get you more into comparing marginal revenue and cost and thinking in terms of a business firm and when they would expand and when they would not. Now we're ready to add a couple columns of numbers here. If I can, fingernails can get under this one. To use these numbers to compare competitive to the monopoly situation. We know what the competitive equilibrium is going to be, 15. Okay, how about the monopoly? See, those last two columns that I just revealed there is the market quantity times the market price, that's total revenue. And then the change in the total revenue from one quantity to the next, that's the marginal revenue. Marginal revenue, change in the total when you make one more. For example, where does this 104 come from? 714 minus 610, 104. I left some blank here so you could find some more. Okay, it's 812 minus 714, what is that? 98, right? Let me go ahead. Oops, I didn't bring a pen today. Oh well. 98. All right. Notice 104 to 98, that's a change of 6. Notice what the price is changing by. 3, right? Marginal revenue goes down twice as fast as price. If price is going down by 3 each time the quantity goes up by 1, the marginal revenue is going to go down by twice that. 6 in this case. So just based on that, you can fill in the rest of them. All right, so where's the monopoly going to settle in, given that they can choose from this menu? You see where my fingers on my left hand are doing, right? These two columns, that's the menu for the price maker. Right? If they choose quantity 6, then they can charge 119. If they want to sell 7, then they've got to charge 116. If they want to sell 8, they've got to charge 113. Okay, all firms maximize profit with marginal revenue equal to or barely greater than marginal cost. So what price are they going to decide is optimal? What choice are they going to make from the menu? Might have to fill in some numbers there. Would have been a good idea if you'd copied this example from your BB Learn, right? It's been there for about a week. Remember, it's there, so don't try to copy the whole thing now. But you see, if this goes down by 6 more, right, this would be what? 74, right? Put a 74 there. Okay, if you have numbers, what about this next one? 74, that's more than 68, right? That's kind of cool, right? Marginal revenue is more than marginal cost. What if we go to the next one? That would be 68 here. Oh, no, that wouldn't work. So monopoly quantity is going to be 11. The monopoly quantity, 11 is where this is true with one firm. Quantity of 11. Marginal revenue 74, marginal cost 68. If you go any further, now if this was tons of something, it's possible to have a half a ton, right? So then the quantity, the optimum, or marginal revenue equals marginal cost would be 11 and a half. But to keep our life simple, for now we'll just assume that it's something that there isn't half units of, right? Umbrellas, cars, you can't sell half an umbrella or half a car. Okay, so 11 is the quantity. Let's go ahead and plot some of these numbers up. mess up that graph. I'll go with this one. Okay, so if it's competitive, here's this quantity is 15. So what price are they going to charge? Let's see, at 11, the price is 104. By the way, this point is important right here. The one that I said isn't the price. If you call that the price to your boss, he'll think you're nuts, right? Because you'll have just told him that the price would be lower than if it was competitive. No, they're not going to buy into that. Okay, so what's this number? That's where the MR or the MC is at 11. So let's look up there at 11. What's the MR is 74. Probably a little more meaningful is the marginal cost since they're different. So why do we need that number? To find the deadweight loss. It's not the price, but we needed to find the deadweight loss, which is what? 36 times 4 divided by 2, $72. Sorry, didn't label here. All right, so looking at the graph, you summarize and you say, if it's competitive, at least in the short run for the moment, price will be 92. Okay, why are you saying it that way? Because price is way more than average cost still, even in the competitive. All right, but at least for now, the market price will be 92 until market entry occurs. If it goes down to just one seller, the price is going to go up from 92 up to 104. Okay, and that's because the monopoly will restrict production down from 15 down to 11. And that'll yield a deadweight loss because those last 4 units from 11 to 15 have a marginal benefit, more than the marginal cost. You're leaving money on the table. How much? Well, 11 minus 15 is 4. 4 times the difference between marginal benefit and marginal cost. 104 minus 68 is 36. 36 times 4 divided by 2 is the same as 2 times 36. And I can do that in my head. That's $72. Boy, not a single question today. I don't believe that. I don't believe that it's that crystal clear. It's probably about as clear as the weather outside. And I hope it's clear, but I've been doing this long enough to know that there are gazillions of I thought you meants out there. There always are in human communication. That's just the norm. Eric, yes?
So if they have $72 more revenue, right? They have $72 more in revenue. They change the quantity from 15 to 11.
No, the $72 is a loss to society from the production being restricted to the profit maximizing level for the monopoly. Now, the monopoly has more profit than before. Yeah, let's double check that. Let's see, is at 15 times 92 is the total revenue, that's 1380. 1380 minus 844, let's see, how much is that? 380, 356, 500 something. You can do that math for me, I don't want to throw out a wrong number. 1380, total revenue minus total cost with competitive is 1380 minus 844. Anybody have that on their calculator? 536. 536, okay. So that's the industry-wide profit if it's competitive, right? Quantity 15 and the price 92. That's the profit being shared, distributed across all the competing firms. Right? The difference between the industry total revenue and the industry total cost. Okay, what if it's what's monopoly producing 11? Okay, let's see. Total revenue is 1144. Total cost is 512. That difference is what? 633. There you go. See, a bigger industry-wide profit.
How would you present this in a question?
Well, I put up the numbers like that and ask about a gazillion questions from it.
Like a test question, you provide a graph.
What's the competitive quantity? What's the competitive price? What's the competitive revenue? Whether it be market entry or exit? What's the monopoly price? What's the monopoly quantity? How much profit do they make? What's the deadweight loss? Those are all things that that could be, probably are likely to be asked. See, I like this example because it puts it right there, it holds costs and revenues and everything for the market as a whole constant. It says, what difference does it make how many competitors there are? 15 quantity versus 11 quantity, right? And then with the 11, price rises from 92 to 104. It also gets into the, you know, what is there going to be entry versus exit? In the competitive case, yeah, there's going to be entry here because even at the price of 92, the typical firm is making an economic profit. And that's going to attract competitors. Yes?
Oh, so because monopoly gains more revenue, but has a greater loss to society.
No, wait a minute, hold on. The monopoly doesn't have more revenue. 1144 is smaller than 1480.
Oh,
But their reduction in revenue is less than the reduction in cost. So, continue. I didn't want you to finish there because it's based on a false premise of more revenue. No, it's not more revenue. It could be, but not in this case.
I was wondering if monopolies were like less efficient than.
Absolutely. Yeah, the whole idea of the deadweight loss is, now it depends on what you mean by efficiency. The efficient quantity is 15. Now, if you mean by efficiency, they're wasteful in how they produce their product, they have room to be, right? So in some cases they are. What do I mean by room? They're making an economic profit. If they're a little sloppy, they're not going to be bankrupt. Whereas the competitive firm, if they're a little sloppy, they're not going to be making a whole rate of return on their resources, and they'll have to go do something else. And so the monopoly has some slack, some economic profit to fritter away by goofing off a little bit. And some people argue that monopolies are a little bit technically inefficient. Now, what we have up here in the graph is assuming technical efficiency. Are they still inefficient? Yes. Because if more was produced, it would be worth more to society to have 15 made versus 11 made than the cost of making those extra 4 more units. So this is a good point too. There's different kinds of efficiency. It's technical efficiency, how sloppy you are in using the resources that you have to make your output. Do you get all the output that you can out of the resources that you have, or do you fritter away some of it by being sloppy? Okay, that's technical efficiency. We typically assume that in our graphs. Okay? The MC with technical efficiency is subsumed there. But thank goodness for your question, because I haven't said that in a long time, because we probably forgot. Now, what we're showing up here, the $72 deadweight loss, that's allocated inefficiency. We're under-allocating resources to this market because it's a monopoly. More should be produced, 15 rather than 11. Okay, so the $72 is a cost of misallocating resources. The other type of efficiency is dynamic efficiency. That means, are we getting better? You know, are we maxing out right now and getting better? That's dynamic efficiency. Right, the main focus most of the time is the allocated efficiency. It takes more advanced economics courses to get after the dynamic efficiency aspect. We've got after a little bit in chapter 7. We talk about the price system. Now you better be innovating and figuring out smarter ways to do things, because if you aren't, somebody else is, and you'll lose your market to them. Right? So there's that constant pressure of competitors to do more and do better with what you have, or you'll lose your customers to somebody else that did. That's the dynamic efficiency aspect of it. Okay, good. More questions? Questions are why it was worth making the trip here today. Because I did remember to push the button today, and so you could view this online later on, and some of you might even know that you did make the trip. But the thing you can't do when it's online is raise your hand and stop the thing and ask a question of the talking figure on the screen. Yeah, you can go on the online forum and post a question. That works too. And I've gotten in the habit of going there more often now that a few people have started posting there, and you should too. Eavesdrop. The question that they asked might have been one you didn't think to ask. Oh, wow, yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, oh, cool, there's the answer. Oh, wow, now I get it. The nice thing about that forum is we don't bore everybody else. That's the problem here. When there's a question, some of you are like, oh, I got that already. We're spending 5 minutes and just kind of doing this. Okay, well, I explained it to somebody that hasn't gotten it yet. That's one of the reasons I'm looking forward to works for them at that moment, and, you know, if they already know that answer to that question, they can go do something else. If they don't, then they can jump in the form and get after it. I know that next time I teach face-to-face, I'm going to require some participation, put some participation scores in it, because I think it makes a big difference. People getting their head in the game if they're forced to be non-passive. I'm begging and pleading, but not pushing this semester. Assigning points for participation, failing to do so. I should have, but I'm not going to change the rules of the game in midstream. All righty, let's see. How are we doing up here? We talked about profits and deadweight loss, all of that. I think we're at the point where we should go to the slides and kind of go over the same ground again, but in different ways, and with it, you know, with it up there where you can download it and copy those words, and you can later annotate them. Oh, that's what that meant. See, all the I thought you meant. That's the point of this, is to get that out of your system. You look at that stuff in the slides. Oh, I know what that means now. Yeah, I didn't know what that meant before. Now I do. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. This is another one of those moments, I think, where if you did this in terms of making the trip today, because you know, another test to study for or something, you know, some high opportunity cost of being here, this is the time when, you know, I don't think I'm going to say anything that I didn't already say up here for the rest of the period, for the remaining 25 minutes. So you won't hurt my feelings. You say, yeah, given you're just going to go over the same thing again, but on the slides, maybe I better hit the road. You know, I'm not trying to get anybody to leave, but trying to help you efficiently allocate your time. Did I do that already? Oh, well. Anyway, there it is. Yeah, I did already, didn't I? Oh, well. All right, so monopoly power, that's that thing I meant by price making. All right, the ability to choose from the menu of price quantity combinations is what monopoly power means. It doesn't repeal the law of demand. Okay, the law of demand is still, Jonathan, yes. Oh, thank you very much. Yes, I must push the button to get it to go back to the slides and back away from my numbers. Thank you very much. All right, so see, some people did the trade-off thing and said, okay, if he's just going to go over the same thing again, I got more important things to do. Cool, fine. Okay, so, one of the things here about this situation, we don't have the information up here to say that they're going to make an economic profit. They may or may not. Okay, how do we know that? What if we have this situation like this? Marginal cost equals average cost at the average cost minimum, right? We've been faithful to that right here in the way I just drew this. Right? So it's possible that at maximizing profit, even for monopoly, they may not make any money. Make just a normal profit, right? Price equals average cost. It's possible that the AC line could be even higher than that. Maximum profit even with a monopoly doesn't guarantee you riches. Right? Maybe they have huge fixed costs. And so with marginal revenue equal marginal cost, they might still not be covering all the overhead. Possible. But they have the ability, possibly have the ability to raise price above average cost without fear of other firms entering. Okay? So that's a precondition of monopoly being persistent. Right? Making an economic profit, if they do, the way I just drew it now, they're not. But if they did make an economic profit, that would be attracting competitors. So it's not going to be a monopoly if they can get in, right? So that's the point here about the barriers to entry. A monopoly is a situation where if you are making an economic profit, there are barriers to entry to keep competitors away. Otherwise, it's not going to be a monopoly very long. So one of the resolutions to the monopoly deadweight loss, rather than regulating and doing some of the things that our government does in some monopoly cases, is to eliminate barriers to entry, right? That's the first thing to do, right? Rather than creating another government agency to do something is, monopolies cannot exist if there are no barriers to entry, because their economic profits will be attracting competitors. If we just get the barriers out of the way, the competitors will come in and won't be a monopoly anymore. Well, that's true most of the time, if that can be done. In many of the poorest countries in the world, that's the reason they're poor, is the government actively protects monopolies, actively creates barriers to entry, actively creates allocative inefficiency. That's why they're poor. It's called crony capitalism. The government creates and sustains monopolies, okay, at a benefit to the elite wealthy, but at a cost to society as a whole. And see, this dead weight loss, this doesn't tell the whole story of why monopolies are bad. The crony capitalism is the other part of it. Right? Sustaining these economic profits by the government creating and maintaining barriers to entry is corrosively corrupt. It takes money, payoffs, to keep those barriers to entry in place. The government people don't do it for free, right? They're in cahoots with the monopolists. They support each other. The number one explanation in the world for poverty is corruption. Why are these people poor? Pointing to whatever country like Haiti, terribly poor, it's terribly corrupt there. Nobody would start a business, hardly anybody would start a business in Haiti, because you can't guarantee that it won't be taken or destroyed by the people in power, or you can't make sure that people pay you, right? Courts are not good at enforcing contracts. It's difficult to get permission to start the business, to be legal, right? So, poverty. All right, I'm getting off the track here a little bit. Okay, so I got ahead of that a little bit. Got into number one there. Why are the reasons that there are persistent monopolies? Right? Crony capitalism, government action. Governments to create and or sustain monopolies that would otherwise not exist because firms would come in to offer competition. Number two is a case where government action is legitimate, efficiency enhancing to create and maintain monopolies. Economies of scale means that one firm can serve the market more cheaply than two or more. Okay, so the government intervention there that's appropriate is, okay, we have a natural monopoly like transmission of power lines. It's a natural monopoly. We have a natural monopoly. It doesn't make sense to have competing suppliers of transmission lines. One set's enough. Okay, so what are we going to do to make sure they don't act like a monopoly? Regulate the price they can charge. Okay, so in a natural monopoly, it makes sense to create and sustain and protect the monopoly from competitors. They don't need much protection because the additional firms are not going to be able to compete against the original one, but make it official. They're the providers of transmission of power line, transmission of power, the power lines. Okay, but limit the price they can charge so that they charge something like the $92 or the $9 here. Make a normal profit, but not charge the monopoly price. Question? I thought you had your hand up. No. Somebody raised their hand. No? Okay. But another way to create and sustain a monopoly is to kind of corner the market on some critical input. Alcoa, the aluminum company, for a long time had kind of tied up all the natural deposits of bauxite, B-A-U-X-I-T-E, which is aluminum ore, basically. Kind of hard to get into the aluminum business if you can't get any raw aluminum to process. Okay? So like De Beers, the diamond cartel, they do the same thing. They try to tie up all the sources of new diamonds. Okay? So access to a key input is a way to create and sustain a monopoly. And then technical innovation will give you a brief monopoly unless you're awarded a patent on it, and then it gives you a little bit more time until it expires. See, that's the incentive that we've decided as a society to create for innovation is you can have a monopoly for a while. You can charge above a competitive price. We, the government, are going to protect you from competitors for a period of years if you patent something that people find attractive. Now, as a couple slides later, we'll say we don't have to do it that way. There are other ways, but that is the way we do it. We allow monopolies to exist for a while. Okay, here's some examples of the different kinds of and different ways to create monopolies. You can look at those later. Okay, so here's the notion of price making. Okay, maximizing profits. They'll determine the price quantity combinations that'll make them the most money. Okay, and then the last bullet there, that's just a long-winded way of saying they're price makers. Okay, produces a large share of the profit of the market's output. That means they have some price setting power. That means they can choose from the demand line for their product what price and quantity combination to charge. Okay, so then the short-winded version of it says, okay, they're going to pick the profit maximizing output and price. Okay, so again, nothing earth-shakingly new there. Okay, the law of demand still applies. They can't just charge whatever they want for and still sell whatever they want. The price they choose will determine the quantity that they're able to sell. Okay, back to the competitive comparison. Competitive firms have a small market share. They have little or no ability to influence the price of that they can sell their product for. Okay, so here's a slide that gets into, in a little more detail, this notion of marginal revenue going down twice as fast as price. That marginal revenue is less than price once you have the ability, have enough market share to influence the price of the good that you're selling. And the two highlighted blocks there show you the trade-off in changing price. You see, if you set the price at 16, you can sell 2 of them, but only 2. If you want to sell 3, you got to lower the price to 14. So that has a $4 cost, right? The 2 that we could have sold for $16 are now only yielding $14, right? So we give up $2 each on the 2 we could have sold for $16 to sell the third one, right? The third one we pull in $14, but we only have a net of 10. Right? We gave up $4 on the 2 we could have sold for $16 each, sold those only for 14, and we sold a third one and got 14, so 14 minus 4 is 10. Okay, marginal revenue is 10 indeed. Okay, so again, the common sense of it is when we lower price, we sell units of output for less than we could have sold them for to sell more. Okay, or said another way, to sell more, we sell others cheaper. Okay, so the marginal revenue is the net of, we sold another one, that brought in some money, but we sold the others cheaper, we lost some money. Okay, the price is going down 18, 16, 14, 12 by 2 each time. What's the marginal revenue changing by? By 4. Right, see? It goes down twice as fast. Okay, so if you have a demand line and you know what quantity it's hitting the x-axis at, pull out your ruler, you draw the marginal revenue line. Hits the x-axis, starts in the same place, hits the x-axis at half the quantity as the demand line. Okay, so there's the graphic illustration, literally and figuratively. Right, the $4 lost by selling the first 2 at 14 instead of 16, and then the 14 we get from selling the third one. And that's got to be more than the marginal cost, that extra $10, or it's not worth doing it. Okay, there it says in black on white what I just said in sound-wise and words. Okay, marginal revenue goes down twice as fast, twice the slope. Okay, here's a couple more proofs of that. If the price goes down 10, 9, 8, 7, right, $1 each, the marginal revenue goes 9.75, goes down by $2. If the price goes down 10, 9.5, 9, 8.5, marginal revenue goes 9.5, 8, goes down by 1. Okay, always twice as fast. Okay, again, if the demand line is a straight line. It isn't always. Sometimes it's called a demand curve. Okay? Like for water, it would definitely be curved. But we'll only deal in the straight ones. Okay, so yeah, it's the marginal revenue shortcut. Okay, so like I said, if you have the demand line and you know where it hits the x-axis, half that quantity is where the marginal revenue line hits the x-axis, starting at the same point. Okay, the firm may be earning economic profit. It's not something we can assume, as I just illustrated with my AC line over there. Here's a case that's plausible, okay, high fixed costs, where even with the monopoly power and the price to set the best price combination possible, they still only make a normal profit. Okay, and the above normal profits can persist if there are barriers to entry. See, now we've put everything on there, like I did over here. Let's put another version of it up here. It's not as messy. We'll put a version on there where they are making an economic profit. Why do I like ton? Because it's a three-letter word. It's nice and short. Oops. Why did I go oops? Because I drew my average cost and marginal cost with the average not equaling the marginal with the average minimum, where they must equal. It's a mathematical certainty that they do. This time I'll draw my MC a little more curved to make it easier to do that. Close enough. All right, so let's see. Always do the quantity first. Not star, but prime. Yes, it's Q star for the monopoly, their best quantity. What are they going to charge? This price. Okay, how much did they make? Let's see, at this quantity, here's their average cost. Okay. The shaded area is their economic profit. Okay, again, got the graph on the slide you can print. There it is on the, I'm just going to call it a blackboard, it's not black, the green board. Yeah, price minus average cost times quantity, that shaded area, that's the profit. And it, yeah, price is above, so yeah, that's the economic profit. And then over here, I remember to bring a color chalk, it would be better. All the way down here, that's the revenue loss. Okay, so again, there it is on the slide, just up on the board. Comparison there, a competitive firm charges price equal to marginal cost. Why? Because marginal revenue and price are the same thing. For a competitive firm, price does not equal marginal cost. For monopoly, price is above marginal cost, but for a competitive firm, they're equal. Zero profit in the long run. They may persistently earn positive economic profits, especially if there are durable barriers to entry. But even if there aren't, they may still not, right? In this case, right? They even with durable barriers to entry, they're not assured a profit. In fact, this is a good example here of what happens if you buy a monopoly from somebody. Only the original owner of the monopoly is likely to make an economic profit, if anybody does. Why is that? Well, because the selling price of the monopoly will reflect the expectation of being able to charge more than cost for the good. We economists call that capitalizing the expected gains into the price of the assets. Okay? So only original monopolies, right? Only the original owner is likely to see this. Any subsequent owners of that same business are likely to see something like this. creating a monopoly may be great. Buying one is probably not all that smart because you're counting on your cronies and or whatever other barriers to entry that exist to keep the price at this level. If the price falls below that level, the graph says you'll be losing money. Only at that price do you make a normal profit. Right? The 104 price in the graph second from your right. Harkening back to, I think it's chapter 5, where we talked about elasticity. The less elastic the demand for the good, the higher the price is going to go. However, as it says on the bottom there, again, something that can easily confuse those predisposed to memorization. Higher, the price is going to be higher, the lower the price elasticity of demand. However, the price will be on the elastic part of the demand line. Profit maximizing price is on the elastic part of the demand line. So see, this is confusing. Inelasticity means higher prices and usually higher profits. But there will be elasticity at the profit maximizing price quantity combination. Let's sort that out a little bit. Let's see, if I go further over that way, they won't be able to see it on the tape, so let me erase something here. I probably can't see some of this either, but oh well. So what does this mean? See, that's an inelastic demand line. But inelastic or not, every demand line has a midpoint, and below the midpoint, absolute value, and above it, every demand line, I don't care how steep it is, how generally inelastic it is, okay, steeper demand lines yield higher prices. Flatter demand lines yield lower prices. Smaller difference between monopoly and competitive with the flatter demand lines, the more elastic demand lines. Okay, so we can characterize the line as a whole as elastic or inelastic depending on how steep it is. But regardless, every line, steep or flat or whatever, has an upper half where the demand is relatively elastic and the lower half where it's relatively inelastic. And so the monopolist, what we're saying with the bottom line there on the slide, is the price quantity combination the monopoly will choose will always be on the upper half of the demand line. Again, what's the common sense of that? If the demand is inelastic, right? In other words, if you're at a point like this, what happens? If you raise your price, you raise revenue and lower costs. Duh, no-brainer, raise your price. Okay, if you're at this point, if you raise your price, you'll raise revenue and lower costs, okay? If you're at that price, you'll raise revenue and lower costs, okay? Well, if you keep doing that, you're going to be on the upper half, right? Okay, so the monopoly will keep raising price until they end up at a point where it doesn't make sense to further raise it, which is on the elastic part of the demand line. Okay, any price quantity combination on the lower half of any demand line is not the profit maximizing price quantity combination for a monopoly. Ponder that, write down what that means to you. Translate that into something you can relate to a week from now when you study. No, a week from now you better be taking the test. 5 days from now when you'll be studying for the test. And you look at that and say, oh, that's what that means. Because otherwise you just look at that slide and say, what? Inelastic? Yeah. Oh, but wait a minute, it says that they're going to be elastic. Yeah. Steeper line, and the reason I'm not drawing more is because it comes up later on the slide. Let's go, we should go to those. Yeah, okay, so here's one right here. Big markup, which means big increase in price with monopoly in the left-hand graph, smaller markup on the right-hand graph. Right, we characterize the demand line on the left-hand graph as much less elastic than the one on the right hand. But either way, the price quantity combination that maximizes profit is going to be in the upper half, the elastic half of the demand line. Okay, markup, price above marginal cost. Okay, competitive, price equals marginal cost. Monopoly, there's a markup, price is above marginal cost. Depending on how big, depends on the elasticity. What's the number, let's go back to that for just a second. What was the number one reason back in chapter 5 of why something was elastic or inelastic? Closeness and availability of substitutes. So a monopoly certainly would not like to have close and available substitutes, right? It diminishes their price setting power. So what type of demand curve? More inelastic is what they would prefer. Right? That means there aren't very many close or available substitutes for their product, and they can raise their price more. Okay, we did this already, right? Social surplus, that's this, right? Consumer surplus plus producer surplus. Okay, it's maximized by competitive conditions and diminished by externalities and now monopolies. Okay, some consumer surplus is transferred to the firm as profit. Okay, so use this graph right here. Oops. Right, this box right here, wish I had my colored chalk. This box right there, in the competitive case, that was part of the consumer surplus. Okay, now it's moved over into the profit column. It's not all the profit, but it's part of it is the monopoly is laying claim to what otherwise would be consumer surplus. Okay, but some consumer surplus is not transferred at all. Right, that's the upper half of this. Right, this was part of the consumer surplus too. At the competitive, no, that's just lost. That's a toilet flushing in case sound effects weren't very good. Right? Dead weight loss, hence the term. Gone. Poof. You know, like the Martian in the old Bugs Bunny cartoons. He is old. Yeah. Google Looney Tunes sometimes. The cartoons the kids were watching in the 60s and 70s. Okay, the Martian, I will zap you, Earthling, you know, and zzz, that's like the dead weight loss, right? Just gone. Disintegration, as they would say in Cajun land. Okay, some consumer surplus is not transferred, it just vaporizes, it disappears. Dead weight loss. Okay, there, see? Anticipation, right? More, I know what it is. I'm going to be in New Orleans later this week because that's where I have a conference. See, I'm getting in the, you know, in the Cajun frame of mind. I'd probably slap my face if I tried Cajun over there, but here I could sort of get away with it. Okay, so dead weight loss emerges when a firm has monopoly power because they have an incentive to restrict output in order to raise prices and increase their profits. Okay, some gains from trade are thus left on the table, which is what unexploited means. Okay, so here's some comparison that we've done up here. Big consumer surplus in the competitive, small consumer surplus in the monopoly. Some of that gets turned into profit, some of it gets turned into dead weight loss. This is a more simplified version of what we did up here because they've got their MC line drawn horizontal, and I drew it sloping up. Either way, same basic concepts. Okay, now there is an incentive, there's that technical efficiency issue that we talked about earlier. You know, monopolies can be sloppy because they have some slack to work with, but that slack in some cases can be the basis for innovation. In other words, you've got a little room to tinker, right? They're not on the brink of economic survival or lack thereof at all times. Okay, so as it says there can be a trade-off between lower prices today and fewer ideas in the future, especially if you're talking about patentable ideas. All right, well, we'll leave it there, and we'll do the other half of the chapter next time.